All right, 6:45, Wednesday, October 25th. This is the 2018 budget meeting of the White Lake Library, not the township. So for those of you tuning in on the township website, this is not the township. This is the library. So from that perspective, don't look for big numbers. We're much, much smaller. With that, any approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Joe, second by Karen. All in favor? First item on the agenda is public comments. Public comments. Yes, so we will need name, address as you make the comment.
Jen, are you a yes?
Yeah. Where was it? Sorry. Go ahead.
I just have a couple questions about the 218 proposed budget. My first question is, do you know what your fund balance was as of the 216 audit? So, because what your audit's on the website. So like, do you know what your fund balance was at the 216 audit?
618,000?
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
So-
yeah, I just.
So don't quote her on the exact number,
I
above
can-
600,000.
Well, I was looking for it to be specifically above 492,000.
Yes.
So,
it is.
So
because,
we exceeded your number.
yeah, because that is that number, and I know you guys know you can't adopt a budget that's gonna put you in a negative fund balance situation. So
Yes.
you are projecting a loss because of the cash flow of the bond for this year, so that would chip off your fund balance. So I see that you are projecting to actually, I know we're nonprofit, but to make money next year of 27,000. So I was just looking to make sure that your fund balance was enough to sustain this loss for this year. My second question I have is, since you know you're not going to be getting the reimbursement for your new building expenditures, probably not before December of this year, because that would, a whole lot would have to happen really fast. I'm curious as to why in your revenue figure, you have not put that in as an expense item so that, I mean, as a revenue number, because it's gonna hit your books, because you've already expended it. So you're going to be getting, when your bond is actually funded, you will be getting that money back from the township, and you'll have to account for that. There's gonna have to be a journal entry to account for that. So I'm just curious why you chose not to put that in your revenue number, since it's not gonna be like a
So-
typical
So
flow
once
through.
again, the township issues the bonds. So the expenses in a normal operating building process, the expenses, or actually specifically for this process, McCarthy and Smith, the construction manager, gets a bill from the architect. They then review it, present it to us, everything's right. The bill does not pass through the library's checkbook.
Correct, that would be for
It
any new
goes directly
expenses.
to
Right.
the township. So therefore, there is no revenue or expense to show up on the,
That would be for
books.
new expenses incurred in January forward, because assuming your bond is, funded, you'd present the bill to the township would write the bills, and you'd never, but you have $800,000 worth of expenses that have already gone through your books, so the expense has to go out, so the revenue has to come in, so the journal entry you would have to show for that money coming back to replenish your fund balance, right?
Yes, we will,
Yes.
yes.
So I'm just curious as why that number is not included in your revenue.
at this point in time, it's a good question, but at this point in time, this is a preliminary proposed budget, and we don't know what the exact
I
number is
just
gonna be.
didn't
by
include
then.
it in our regular monthly financials, it's there.
Okay,
And I can give you a copy of that.
okay, no, I was just,
It's just
because it's gotta
supposed-
show you're making money next year so that you can refund, you
Yeah.
can replenish your fund balance, and this budget doesn't have that in there, so those were my only two questions. Okay, thank you.
Next public? Going once? I only have four more, so two. All right. Okay, so now the trustees can do the presentation of the 2018 budget.
Up to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, Okay, usually in the October meeting, we go over preliminary numbers and discuss it, and then often we'll come back in November to finalize it if you guys choose to. David, you've been to the budget?
No.
You had it, so both of you guys have. Okay, so I'll be a little more detailed than normal, just to make it a little easier. So property taxes, everybody got one of these. Schedule that shows all of the taxes that we should be getting, and this is interesting, she's got an extra zero. I got this from Janine assessing, so the last line on the right should be 1,020,000, okay? 1,102,000.
So we're not getting $10 million?
No, I wish.
Oh, man.
Getting $1,021,000.
121's better than that.
1,102,000. She added up, she probably,
It looks like it might not be.
well, I added it up on my spreadsheet, my original one, and this is what we come up with. 1,102,000,
Okay.
okay? And that's what I got
That's
from
a decrease?
Mike Roman.
Oh, it's 50 grand increase.
Yes. Can you?
Yeah, I'm done.
This is correct.
Just keep
Okay,
going.
grant revenue, which usually we try to at least get 3,000. This year we had a couple grants on the history, World War I series that was financed through national grants. It's been really, pardon?
It does add up to 1 million.
Does it?
Yeah.
Yeah, she, so, I'm gonna delete that list. That's weird. Okay, state aid is based on the amount of residents we have. And it will be hopefully similar every year for the next couple years. And it has been 19,630, so therefore our next budget would be about 19,600. In the past, it has been right around 17,000, but it's increased recently with the change in the economy. So. Penal fines, it's kind of an interesting one. That is fines on state roads go to libraries. It's one way to try and, it's one way to fund libraries, and it's also one way to make sure that tickets are written and goes back to the local jurisdiction, try to keep everybody honest.
So no speed traps in White Lake?
No, not anybody, that's correct. A lot of libraries that are on right near, like, some of the major expressways have sizable, fine, 200,000, 300,000.
Yeah, so if you're down in Berrien County, like by Chicago, Indiana border, all
Yeah.
the trucks that could pull over, really back could pull over.
The rest of them are pretty much consistent every year. So I'm proposing similar budgets.
I think the only comment on that though is 687 gifts and memorials,
Mhm.
Karen and Dave.
That-
That money comes in at the top and then it goes out on a line item down below under gift fund purchases, line item 98.
Yes.
So it's in,
So we have a balance there essentially for,
We have not used it. It'll be used for the things we're doing right now. It was an unencumbered stock donation, that one. And we can't count on it every year, so we don't budget for something we can't cover. Generally, though, the Friends at least give us 10,000, so we get that. Anything else on that one?
other income is like copiers, no, that's okay.
Other incomes, copy.
Okay.
Salaries, benefits, and payroll taxes. We usually look at the benefits first to see how much increase we're gonna, is projected. We do know the first 5 months, and it is 2.4% greater than last year's. That is much less than we normally have. In the past, it's been 8, 9, 10%. That's a good trend, trend down, I guess. But I did incorporate at least a 5% additional for when the rates come in May to cover the last 7 months. So it's like a prorated balance. Some doing it. You're good? Okay,
we got something after that.
we can,
Well, or I'll just say, so Karen and Dave, you guys know that our employees have a cost sharing on their benefits. So, when everybody else in the world had to start paying for their benefits, we switched to have our employees also. So currently, the payment is over $170 a month for a person that's with more than, or 2 or more dependents. So there is a cost share. The cost sharing, we try to equate to about 10% of the total cost of the benefits. So that's one of the differences here in the township between the employees, the substantial additional amount that these people will pay. Gotcha.
We do have we only have 9 full-time employees that are eligible for the benefits, and some of them do opt out. Some can't get health care, but from the spouse.
and they're compensated $3,000. The other increase has to do with the attorney going from part-time to full-time,
Yeah.
and Denise Harris going from 2 person to 1 person. So it's kind of equals out a little bit. Normally, I wait for you guys to tell me what, if there's gonna be some sort of increment. This time I put in 2%. We can, township is a little bit more than that. They just got their, settled their contracts. They get I think it's a 1% at the end, right now, maybe, one.
Well,
with
it's
the-
2, 2, 4, and then 2 at the end, but
Yeah, it was
then-
something like that.
Yeah, I know, send it to,
Right.
and then 2 in the middle of the year next year, and then 1 or 2 in the end of the year next year.
Is it sworn personnel or
Is it across the board? There's different contracts. Oh, goodness, maybe.
That's right, there's different contracts.
Yeah. They get different things, but the non-union.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and we can come back to that, and tell me if that's what you want to do, or want me to go back and look at it and figure something else out. So you have your big spreadsheet with the salaries and the benefits. And because it's such a large part of our budget, we're more detailed with it.
Typically, we'll, as a trustee, we'll use this during the meeting and then we give it back to the meetings. I mean, you can keep it, obviously it's yours, but while the information is, available to anybody, but I see no reason to keep what so-and-so is making.
No other no other changes expected for next year. Similar hours for all the employees. We have changed to people in some similar salaries, hourly wage. I did prorate mine. I don't know if you saw that there. So it'd be a little more, pardon me?
Just look at it, 17 year-to-date actual versus the 548 for the budget versus the 578.
Why is it low?
It's, no, actually, the 578 seems a little high.
For next year?
Not by much, it's just a little.
That's including 2%. We are not paying. No, she was saying
If you started full-time, figure.
I can look at those calculations and make sure that.
Oh, you got one more 5-week month. So this thing, November is a 5-week month. So that will make up the difference. Give you about 20 grand off, and that's a 5-week month. Okay.
Many of the other lines are the same, but we can go through them. Supplies, we have the histories, very, that has gone down. You can see that because our copier is now included under repairs and maintenance, and we're not charged for our ink through our supply account. So it's one of the reasons why it's lower than it has been. So I may need to adjust the repairs and maintenance to incorporate that change. Because it was pretty sizable, but
So right now, we're at within $70 of last year's total supplies. And,
yeah, but
I don't remember, but we budgeted higher. I don't recall. We really recall why we,
What for the time?
probably because we didn't have the history at that point.
Right.
yeah, okay.
So that could be reduced some. I wouldn't want to take it too far.
Yeah, but I
Because
think
it's still not even, we're not through the whole year either.
I was gonna say, look at line number 931, and repairs and
I know,
maintenance.
it's.
You're at the budget, with 2 months to go. So
That,
you're gonna need $8,000 more in repairs and maintenance, and you're $5,000 over.
that was from the septic issue. So that was
Okay.
6,000, more than that. That was on there.
So you probably need to move at least $2,500 from supplies down to repair and maintenance.
For next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
So make it 7,500 and 42,500.
Legal fees projected less because the legal fees that we have would be bonded expense. Additional legal fees. Bond fund for, that's not a operating expense. TLN is the library network. That's a consortium that we share all our, it's how we get all our deliveries or all our interloan from the Metro Detroit areas that we share with. It's 60 libraries. Allows us to keep a certain inventory for our people, but if there's something special that someone wants that we don't own, then we have a catalog, a shared catalog that people can request a book or resource sent here. Usually takes about a week. And that is, number is higher than I expected, so I'm going to look at that one too. I'm not sure.
So is it charged for an interloan?
No, it's actually for the delivery. We get delivery that, a truck comes here 5 days a week. And then we also have a share of the catalog that we share and the upkeep and maintenance of that, which is expensive. They help us with all our connectivity to the internet, and they help us with getting funds from the LSTA grant. That's a grant, federal grant that comes through the consortium. So that's, they administer it. We usually get about $3,000 back after 2 months. So it's a
Don't they
big
also help us
question.
with the, on some of the databases?
They help to negotiate cheaper prices for some of our databases, yeah. Like for consumers reports, $400 less than a standalone library will pay. Yeah, it is nice. They're pretty good people too. It's good to work with and knowledgeable. Computer services. Historically, it's been about 15,000. We have a consultant that comes in every week on Tuesday mornings and troubleshoots our computers and updates our computers and helps us with anything related to that. Amy is head of technology and she helps do some of the minor updates. But we don't have a techie on staff, which is kind of different from most libraries.
Do we have an hours contract with them yet?
Not yet.
Lock in, right?
And yet we're out, we went out, we spent the last amount this month.
Okay.
So we're paying hourly, just keeping it the normal rate we had before, and then when we get our money, then we'll sent me a new contract, I told him. Otherwise, it's 35,000. But we keep it for, it's a 3 year.
Yeah, no, it's been good.
It's a deal. It's a good deal for work that way. Telephone, I locked into a good deal on our telephone somehow or other. It worked out, so it's gonna be a little bit less. Again, that's for a year, so it's gonna go, most likely go back up. It's interesting how it's crazy. And everybody knows how the but mileage, it's pretty consistent every year. The tuition, and we keep a budget because of in case one of our staff members does decide to go back to school, we do have a policy that will help pay for that. Encourages them to think about it if they want to go back. Doesn't really pay a whole lot, but yeah. Dues and subscriptions. It will be more next year because we will need to pay for the Public Library Association subscription in order to go to that conference, which is in Philadelphia. It'll be important for key staff to go because of the new building, to make sure that we have the right, we'll be showing the vendors, which will be able to show us what most current technology is out there. And it's where I get most of not my ideas, but it's food for thought. You go and you see what people are doing, and it is, when that comes, something comes up and you need to draw on that reserve and you have it. Plus, there's just lots of good education there. And then we have the Michigan Library Association as well. That's every year, and that's going to be in Novi this year. So I hope you guys can consider attending at least 1 or 2 of the days. Pam Collins went when it was in Novi a couple of years ago, and she really enjoyed it. It's a good. Have you been on one? But from the when I went to conference last week, they said that because of it being in the Metro Detroit area, they are going to try to have a good selection of classes for boards and trustees.
What's up with the dates? Do you have the dates?
Third week in October. I don't know the exact date.
November.
October.
Oh, this coming year.
Next year.
2018.
You had said November, so it was.
Oh, did I? I'm sorry. No, I misspoke. Okay, so then we get into programming. Programming, we're going to be in the same building, very similar ability to hold programs. We have a very, as you guys know, a robust slate of programs and really good librarians that plan them and budget for them and have experience in trying to get the best bang for their buck. So, and we also are subsidized by the Friends for summer reading program, which is something that maybe Commerce doesn't have. The programming, you had mentioned that at your last meeting. They may budget for that out of their own budget, but we do get, as many libraries do, get summer reading subsidized because that's part of their mission, is to help with literacy, which is prime thing for summer reading. Last year, I think they gave $3,500 total, which is pretty good. Building insurance, we don't know, we never know how much it's going to be. The highest it's ever been is 21. I put 21 in. we should probably get another quarter for this year.
The reason we don't know what it is because there's a rebate involved, and the rebate has to do with loss, overall loss of the insurance company,
All
so.
that and however, we do get benefit from the township, part of their policy.
Yeah.
And we, but we pay enough, we pay a lot into their
Right.
policy, so. It's through the Municipal Townships Association, and they have it set up so that after a certain amount of years of experience, and if claims weren't that high, then people get rebates. You have to have a certain amount of experience to show that you're not claim happy, which we've been lucky that there has been some refunds. In particular, I think it was 2015, it was almost, we got almost everything back. Workman's comp, same electricity. We do have a lot of computers.
Work comp, you're expecting to go down?
That's a good point.
Where-
Well, this is actuals, so those are two actuals, and the budget was last year 800.
Mhm.
So
The
perhaps
point
we
is,
should take
it's
it
been
up.
over $1,000 for the last 2 years, so why wouldn't you put it at just $1,000?
Well, we'll do that.
We pay for that as well, and the ladies based on experience, and the based on.
It's,
Are we too small for
we're
something?
too small. It's like $75. It's not full. Let's see. That's through. Payrolls. 0.26 of the first 9,000 times 25. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, oh.
On electricity, have we, with the revised lighting, I guess 2 years ago now?
Well, had we not had the electricity for the
The township grinder pump?
grinder pump, we would be probably equal. I mean, we would have saved money, but right now we're
Okay.
about the same. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah. They hooked up the grinder pump electricity to our electricity in our back room. It's not too far, but that was done over a weekend,
And nobody
We're
asked,
paying for
nobody
it.
said.
and we're paying for the charge on electricity. There was discussion about getting a meter. But it hasn't been pursued. Gas has been lower. Still don't know what the winter's gonna be, so I'm just gonna put an eye on it. So that to keep it where it's at. And the new building, the gas is gonna be very similar, primarily because it's gonna be, hot water heat, electricity, which is still supposed to be cheaper.
Yep.
So,
It'll be on 8 zones.
So hot water heat, using electricity to heat?
No,
no,
natural gas.
natural
Natural
gas.
gas.
Natural gas on a boiler.
On boiler. Repairs and maintenance, we talked about that a little bit. What primary reason it's over is
Septic.
septic repair and pumping out every 2 weeks.
Did you say pump out every 2 weeks?
Yeah, we had to,
Not anymore.
not anymore. We, just,
There was an
we
issue
thought,
with.
we thought, last winter, we thought that perhaps the septic failed over the winter, and we were going to hook up with the township. But when the weather broke, we had another plumber come in, and he was able to fix it. So we don't have to hook up, otherwise we would have been paying 20,
Well, it was $40,000 to hook it up,
so.
and so we avoided the cost by finding the fact that we actually had 2 septic tanks and not one.
So is that for 2 septics then, or just for the one?
With what?
Two, well,
It's one,
one, but we repaired the other one.
yeah.
It's less than what we would have done. Yeah, we didn't want to do a hookup knowing that we were moving. It would have been a lot of money that's.
All right, repairs of collections.
Collections, maintenance is basically taking in books, putting tags on them, making sure they stay clean, and that kind of stuff. Tags, the RFID tags that we put in, that kind of stuff.
Are we gonna have we're fairly well below last year. Or we have expenses.
No, you're looking at actual, we're not at the end of the year yet.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to say, do we have a lot left to go?
If you buy a lot of tags, if
Yeah.
you buy the tags a lot.
The tag lot is $1,000.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where we're at, but
But that's kind of, yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. That's usually pretty consistent.
so collections, we have a good budget for collections. And in the last couple of years, we've added a special item, high demand collections for those things that people are asking for, so that they don't have to wait a long time to get that material, whether it's a bestseller or a DVD. It's called Lucky Day, and if it's here, so you're lucky to get it. Otherwise, you come back another day. Grant expenditures as gift fund is usually the same amount as revenue for budgeting purposes. We don't know exactly how much we're going to get, so that's the best way we normally budget. Although we do know that the larger item, the gift fund, will at least get the $10,000 from friends. Furniture and fixtures, I did include a budget for that and for equipment and preparation of moving. We are going to be getting a new circulation system next year. Memorial Day weekend is the planned migration. It can be a very difficult time for staff because everything's going to change. And then therefore, software.
Is that statewide or?
No, it's for the library.
Or
No.
just for the calendar?
Just got a question. Okay.
What are the high demand collections?
That's we call them primarily Lucky Day. It's for things that our patrons and customers have asked for and would appreciate not having to wait a long time for. So like the bestsellers, the DVDs that are real popular. Otherwise, we're sharing with our 60 libraries, and they might be on a list for, 10 different checkouts until they can get it. So we have, and that's one thing in our strategic plan that the public asks for, is to put more money into those kinds of things. things that they really wanted, so that's what we, yeah, and it's a pool number right now for both children and teens, and all three, and adults, so that we can each year allocate where we think we need to appropriate money. That's what it is. We don't change the regular budgets. It's that one that, and we haven't changed that budget since we started 2 years ago. Now, the good thing about this is, and I'm not sure if I mentioned to you guys or not, we hope to, because of our budget, this will be adequate for the new library. Right now, we have to weed a lot in order to make room for new books. And I'm proposing that beginning the first part of this year, that whatever we do leave, we put in storage. There's one library that has extra space that you could store the books, just put it in storage until take them off of the collection until we move to the library, and then we'll have not the books, the shelves won't be full, but they'll be enough. And we won't have to leave as much in the future. We'll have a better, bigger collection at that point. So I think that works out pretty good. All right, that's about it. Any other questions?
So I think from our point, the trustees, your input is on the percentage increase for payroll. The township is doing 2% in January and 1% in July, so a total of 3% for the non-union, based on what
You
you
have it?
sent me.
I didn't commit it to memory.
So from that perspective, being a 2% for us keeps us well in our normal conservative nature. If you look at the bottom line, the extra 27 grand, if you make virtually no changes, I guess it's time for your input. 2% is good. If you want to go more or less, that's up for us to discuss.
On the projected salaries, we end up with a 560 versus a 548 budget. Is that?
560, what do you see 560?
Projected 2007.
Oh, okay.
So 2017, so we're the
My actual on this sheet may not tie directly to this actual.
got it.
Is that what you're?
Yeah, so no, yes, I'm looking at if we're going to spend 560 this year, and next year the budget was 548, then we'd be, it might be an increase in the budget, but it's a decrease in total expense there too. But that, maybe that 560, do you see the line I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the budget, the projected actual, I see, and then the budget was less, and,
Got it. I'm with you.
okay, we
Yeah.
had
Okay, so
two
it's
changes.
578, I'm comparing apples and oranges. Okay, got it.
What did library employees receive for an increase last year?
2%.
And then if you across the board, you would have to, or do you want extra funds?
I think that's for the directors to discuss, we shouldn't have.
Okay.
We can ask them next month.
Okay.
Yeah, tell them what we retired. Karen, Dave, you guys, thoughts? Joe?
2% sounds reasonable to me.
For now.
Okay.
I know what you can get about to go with that.
2%? All right, so leave the full year increase at 2%, and then you can tell us next month how you guys plan on allocating that. So that would be one adjustment. The second, the 27, the bottom line corner as we're a nonprofit, that's a
I know.
profit. So I think we should put that into equipment and furniture and fixtures as anticipation of the new facility.
Yes.
So that's where we're gonna need it versus putting it in someplace else. Anybody disagree?
No,
Anybody agree?
Totally, yeah.
Totally agree.
And just normally, we have a under budget of about 50,000, combined under budget of everything. Just so you know that, so, and normally that's what would add to our fund balance every year.
Yeah, so if you look at the very first column, 2016 actual, we underspent our revenue by $63,000. So when you look at 1.1 million of income, that's a nice percentage under. So if we can maintain that, and if we, 17's kind of convoluted because of the building fund, but if we can maintain some kind of fund balance additional for 17, plus the fund balance a little bit for 18, that'll just help us make the new facility just that much better. All right?
All right.
So I've got your change, you're gonna look at supplies with repair and maintenance. You're gonna verify TLN services at the 45, if that's the right number. Increase workers' comp, and then push the balance of where you're at, depending on if TLN's a good number or not, into furniture and fixtures.
Okay. You did, okay, got it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions, you guys? Since it's the first time you've seen it, going through it?
In the past, we talked about it, well, I guess it's an equipment, the computer equipment, so we got into a sort of a 3-year program where we were
So the computer syncing fund, the
computer
bottom line.
syncing fund, yeah. We got that in when, in not doing that this year, is that,
Oh, I could put it in that line.
or,
I just didn't, the furnishings and fixtures budget of the new library includes an amount for new computers for the new library,
Mhm.
rather than needing a sinking fund to budget for that.
Okay. So
But-
but we'll need to, I mean, in
That's-
3 years, we're gonna, so rather than,
Well, that's when we're gonna move in.
So you'd start over in 19, and then for calendar year 19, 20, and 21,
build that
then
up.
you should have a sinking fund so that in 22 you can replace what was purchased.
I hear what you're saying, but I kinda like that. Can we put it in the sinking fund, and then if we don't use it, then we'll.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, not necessarily,
And then-
well, I'm thinking put 15 there,
yeah,
and, yeah,
like we normally do. Just in case. we never know. And then the balance would go to equipment. Whatever.
Furniture fixtures.
Furniture,
permit.
furniture fixtures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other points? So we will, Denise will rework it, come up with a clean sheet, and then the expectation is next month we would approve it. Okay?
that would be a regular meeting.
In the regular.
In the regular.
In the regular.
Any other questions, concerns?
You want us to use or going to do that?
No, come anytime.
Any motion?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion at 7:35 to adjourn the budget meeting. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Aaron and Bill approve? Everybody approve? All right?
Unless we could-
Okay, so, at the
conclusion of the budget meeting, which concluded, we now open the regular meeting of the White Lake Township Library Board at 7:38. Look for approval of the agenda.
I'll move.
Karen moved,
I'll
second
second.
by Joe. Jen, Dave, you agree?
Yep.
Everybody agreed. So again, we have opportunity for public comments. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure,
I'm not sure if you'll answer it or not, but,
that's okay.
I know you went to the township and asked for money for your water,
Oh, thanks.
and the last
okay.
board meeting. With the rejection, how do you plan on paying for it?
So, first of all, a clarification on the request. So, the request was because we have property and our neighbor has property, there's some interpretation of whether or not the water has to run from Kroger to the rehab. So the water line crosses over one parcel onto a second parcel. So the request wasn't for the township to pay for our water. The request was for the township to share in the improvement of their property in the proportion of what their property is to our property. So we were just looking at, as a good neighbor, what would the neighbor pay? I mean, people do this, special assessment districts and all this other kind of stuff, but since it's only two people, it was kind of, why would you ask for a special assessment district? I mean, that's kind of, crazy. So the request was based on a neighborly to neighbor, because there would be increased value to their property if we did it all together at the same time.
How would it increase their value if they're not gonna sell that property? What would increase the value? What would benefit them to do that?
So good question. From the perspective of, and I'll use the $240,000 is the assumed estimate for the entire length. So as it stands, the township wishes to develop, sell off, do something with their parcel rather than just have Ruggles cut grass on it. So there's an idea for what you've seen, which if people would please go and do the second survey for CIDI, that would be wonderful, so that we can get more community input. But there is the idea, there is the township wanting to go forward to develop that property. And when they develop the property, they'll need water. I mean, that's a fact. So it wasn't so much that we were looking for them to pay for ours. It's more along the lines of, if we're putting water line in, why wouldn't we just put one line in all at the same time and share in the cost? Because you're gonna get value out of it.
But you're still asking them for the money then?
Well, no, Mr. Colwell already said
No.
he would call us back shortly. So from that
It's been
perspective.
tabled, so nothing has been decided on it.
Yeah, nothing was, they didn't say yes, they didn't say no, they just said,
Okay, so
We'll put it back.
hypothetically, let's say hypothetically they say no.
hypothetically, they say no.
Okay.
So, and this is for all you guys, just to answer your question, it would be a part of the building committee, but since you asked, we'll go for it right now. At the time of the presentation, based on the input from our construction manager and our architect, there was an alternative solution. And the alternative solution is for the library to put in a well, which is minimal expense when we look at $240,000. But oddly enough, the largest expense is the fire suppression system. So we have to make sure that we've got a backup generator and a pump, and I still don't believe this calculation, but that's what they told us. We would actually have an underground tank of water. You fill it up once, the water sits there, and in case of a fire, there's water to put it out. So our alternative was just that. that alternative would cost about $100,000. So if we look at the long term, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever rate the township develops their property, you could have looked at it as the library would spend $100,000 today, and then the township would spend, because the development they look at doing, a well and fire suppression system like what we can do because of the one building would not work for the development they want to do.
Correct.
So therefore, they would then have to put in the water line. So the taxpayers would spend, or we would budget, or however you want to say it, we would have sunk $100,000 into today's lowest cost solution. In the future, the taxpayers would then pay for the $240,000. So the combined cost is $340,000 at some point in time for the taxpayers, because we would have sunk the $100,000 in, and then they would pay $240,000 for the water line, which, assuming no economics, all that kind of stuff. So we just looked at it as, from a tax base, if they paid a portion and we paid a portion of the $240,000 today, we come out, we collectively, the people that live here and pay it, would come out better. So
Is the
that's-
well allowed by the township? Is that something that you could look at and it can be done, or is that something that has to be approved and has been approved?
So as I said, at the time, that was the thought that was approved, and we could go down that path.
Mhm.
Since then,
Mhm.
I personally have read the water ordinance, or at least skimmed enough of it, because one of the trustees made a comment about 200 feet. If you're within 200 feet, and the 200 feet is defined mathematically, you have a 150-foot threshold, and then 50 feet for every structure. So if we were going to build 2 buildings, it would be 150 plus 50 plus 50, or 250, but we're only doing 1. So it's 150 bogey plus 50 feet. So if we're within 200 feet of water, we must bring water to our property. And that was under what the township ordinance, and I won't have the right word, but it's under like a fiscal threshold. They think that meaning the ordinance, says that you should be able to afford to move water 200 feet. So that ordinance would say that we have to bring the water to the property. So I'm kind of on board with that. That's what it says, we're living by all the ordinances, no problem. The remaining question is that we had a response from one of the township outside engineering firms that used the term request. We connect to make it a loop system. Basically, we connect from Kroger to the rehab. So the open question is today, is that a request because they think it would be good to have, meaning a loop system so water doesn't come to the end of the pipe and sit there, stagnate, get germy and all this stuff. They want the water flowing, continuously in a loop. So I can't answer your question today because it was just, this is like fluid, not to use water fluid, but we just came up with the fact that it was a request. Reading the water ordinance, I cannot find where it is a requirement. And if it is a requirement, then I would have to go back to the financial wherewithal of the why did you have 150 feet plus 50 feet is a financial threshold that they figure was acceptable versus, we would have to put in 2,000 feet of pipe. So it's open.
But if we had to pay for it, it would come out of our $8.6 million.
Yeah, it's
We
all.
would never go over it.
it-
We're not
the
going over it. We're never
8.6
going over it.
is- That's all there is. The 8.6
We'll have to figure it out.
just becomes, right now, in our working budget, meaning it changes based on everything, every day, what we're looking at, it's a $120,000 surprise. So that 120,000, because in our budget, we had 120 for, we just said, okay, we'll take half of the line. Not that I think it should be half, but conservatively, we said half. And it's 240, so from that perspective, we would then have to look at the building and what we're doing and figure out where another 120 is coming. For which, as we look at it, if we save 50,000 in our 18 budget, and if we save 50,000 in our 17 budget, well, then we're working to accommodate it. So, in my opinion, one, the township may still come back and say, yes, they see value improvements in their property. Because if they improve it, or if they have a developer improve it, somebody somewhere is gonna put the pipe in. So the value will be there, or makes it more saleable. Or we just have to investigate, is this a request or a requirement? And then it'll come back to, different lines in the code. Is it really a financial burden that should be borne or whatever? So we're still working on it. I see, wait a minute, wait, her hand was up.
Yeah, so on the $8.6 million that you came up with for this project,
Uh-huh.
do you have a breakdown of that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And what that includes?
Yeah.
And there's no, because usually when you have a project, you have like 10%, you've got sort of like a slush fund.
So we have 7% contingency fee.
Oh,
7% is what we held
Okay.
back. So that's out there.
All right.
Still
And
available.
it's still there, we haven't like, I mean, it's
You
a
don't wanna-
fight,
You don't want to spend it right up front.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I can understand that.
So we're holding on to it.
Still, it's.
But yeah, there's stuff out there.
Okay.
I still have one more question.
No, wait a minute, did you want to clarify what we were just talking about?
Yeah, so on the 200 feet hookup thing,
Uh-huh.
so if you're not required to do the looping, then I'm assuming it's significantly cheaper than just to do the 200-foot hookup?
No,
Because
the
the most
200
ex-
foot is the minimum threshold. If you're within 200 feet, you must hook up to the water line.
Okay, so I thought I heard you say that most of the expense is the 2,000-foot looping system. That's not 2,000 feet to actually connect to the water.
No. So, well, it depends on how, so let me try it again. Between Kroger and the rehab is 2,000 feet. Between Kroger and the library property is less than 200 feet. So we meet the threshold that we must hook into the water.
Okay.
So because we must hook into the water, we now have to bring the water line to our property, which is 900 feet, 800 feet. So we have to go a distance, almost half, but not quite. So this distance here is what we would have to pay for.
Okay. But which would be less than the looping thing all the way up to there, but still would be a significant amount of money?
But it's in our budget.
Oh,
It only gets to our budget number. We are doing our due diligence to protect this budget, line item by line item, and right now, we have a line item that says water, 120K. Unfortunately, we have an estimate of 240K. So how do we get back to budget? Well, the first thing is, the water line has to go to the edge of your property. So if we get to the edge of our property, if we get our neighbor to pay, then we protect our budget. If we avoid, because it's not required, it's only requested, we protect our budget. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, because what I thought I heard you say, if you could do the smaller piece and not have a looping, if at some time down the road, commercial property came in and developed the looping, would you then be able to, like just jump on board and connect to at that point? So if the property didn't get developed for 5 years, but let's say Macy's or something went in there and did it, would what you're doing right now be able to allow you to piggyback onto that system when it finally did get, or are these two
Now,
completely, there's like
so-
not connected at
So
all?
where you, I think you missed, was
Okay.
when we were talking about a well as an option.
Oh, okay. That's,
Because that well option was the 100 grand, then when somebody put this in, yes, then we could connect whatever we wanted. That option is gone, off the table.
okay,
So the only option is to determine this segment of pipe. Is it by ordinance? Because we will follow the ordinances, not people's wish list. And if it is by ordinance, then it's a question of, is the person that's getting the perceived value of it paying for it, or are we paying for it? That's all it comes
okay. Because you were anticipating your portion no matter what.
to. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
so it's this
we-
other portion that, okay.
I'm sorry.
I asked if that was a county ordinance.
Yeah, that's a good question. Which ordinance though? The 200 feet
Yeah.
or? I don't know. I read the White Lake Township water ordinance. Ordinance number 22. It's very lengthy. It's exciting. But that ordinance is there. That's to protect, I mean, that's so people don't say, I'm not gonna bring the water line because I don't wanna pay for it. But then the next guy comes in and then he's like, well, wait a minute, you didn't bring it from there to there. Why should I have to bring it from there to there and you get the benefit? It's just the reverse of what we're saying. I mean, why should we put it in? So it's just to make sure that if the water line exists, everybody keeps building it out, as long as it's not too far a distance that it's a financial burden.
And you also want to protect and maintain that it's a maintainable system. It's not just cookie cuttered, little,
Piecemeal together.
100 feet here, 100 feet there, and then, in 10 years, we're having water main issues.
It's gonna happen no matter what.
Okay? So, your second question.
My second question. Everybody talks about the budget and saving money, moving things around. I have yet to hear anybody ask or say, how are you paying this township back for your salary, for your checks every week? I don't understand how you guys just don't pay it, because that's our money. You talk about your money. It's not your money. That's the taxpayers' money. That's my money.
So, I think we've been down the path more than once. So I will reiterate that when the proposal was put on the ballot, there is a calculation to tell you how much you as a taxpayer are going to pay for $100,000 worth of home value. That is a mathematical calculation, and it has assumptions. The assumptions were 8.6 million,
Assuming.
I forget the interest rate, 4 point something. Starting with the money borrowed July 1st, 2017.
That was on the ballot.
Yes.
Now, be careful, no, hold on a second. You just said that was on the ballot.
No, I was asking.
The dollar amount that you would pay is on the ballot.
Correct.
The formula and the math behind it is not. So that's why I want to be careful when you say
Okay.
that's on the ballot. The $57.46 per $100,000 or whatever that was is on the ballot.
Okay.
That document is what the township approved. It's, we've referred to it, and I don't know if it's technical or not, page 2. So you had the ballot, and then you had the supporting document of how that came together. So that was there with a borrowing of July 2017. So from the people that were here at the time,
because I'm excluding two, because they weren't. That was the assumption of when the cash would be available. Based on that assumption, the library would not have $886,000 expended. That money would have flown through to the capital bond fund. And we wouldn't have spent it. And therefore, we would have paid all of our bills on time and everything else. So the discussion has been held with various people from the township. The fact that some things didn't happen on their end, the fact that there was misunderstandings and whatnot, that they are not necessarily happy, and I'm not speaking individually, I'll speak in the greater them. While it's not the most ideal thing, guys should put this off, huh? I was using a calculator. That they should not be doing because of the situation we're in collectively, that there is a unhappy agreement that we're not paying ourselves.
When you say collectively, you're talking about the township and you, or
Yes.
just, well, how's the township in any kind of, I don't understand why you're bringing them into that
Because
quandary.
the township is the ones that issue the bonds.
Mm-hmm.
They are the ones that approve the bond language. They are the ones that have the control over the cash and the entire bonding process. So from that perspective, that's how we're at. And between the two boards, maybe not totally 100% on each side, this is the working arrangement that we're living with.
And you think it's justified in terms of not paying back the township with our tax money? And who's, you do.
I do.
Well, of course you do.
Because what the language that was on the ballot implied a July of 2017 release date for the funds, and it didn't happen.
But
And if it
you have to, I
happened-
want to keep
if it
coming,
hadn't
I,
happened-
wait a minute, I'm
if it
going to keep
had-
coming
let me finish,
back.
Teresa.
I want, wait,
If
I'm
it
gonna,
had happened, then we wouldn't have this shortfall.
but if you would have done what you're supposed to do, you wouldn't be in this predicament.
But nobody asked us to do anything. We were
Oh,
all
no, hold on a
working,
second.
we were
No,
all
no, wait a
working on
minute.
the
Stop,
assumption it was
stop.
gonna happen.
Please stop.
No.
Both sides. I am much more than willing to entertain constructive conversation, but let's just leave it as,
It is what it is. We don't
no,
have to.
let's leave it as the township is moving forward. There is a small group, Denise, Joe, Mike and Terry, Mike Roman. They met with the bond, I don't want to say attorney, well, between the bond attorney and the bond financial guy, there is a timeline, there is a process that they're working through, and all of the requirements that the financial advisor have laid out are the responsibility of the township. The library will support any question, any issue, whatever they need in a timely fashion. So it's in process. I think we don't need to keep rehashing the past, and we're moving forward. And I think we're getting into a much better place.
Yeah. So I mean, and maybe I misspoke, but what I meant was, they didn't ask us for anything, that we hadn't already given them. So that's what I don't understand the disconnect, that people don't understand that they have the information they need, and that they are finally moving forward.
They finally got it.
No.
Finally.
So
Yeah.
you can qualify it with family.
Okay, I will.
But I would say that we can move on. I mean, it's not a.
But you are paying them back for the money that you owe them for.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
We
And
will.
when is that, and when is that gonna happen?
When we
It's
get the
about
money.
When the bond,
So
right.
you're paying with the bond money.
Because they passed an ordinance that we could do that.
But you could actually repay them back in January when you get all of your money for the year, right? And you're flush again, you could repay them back at that time, because you will have money.
Yeah, which we,
Because, I mean, one of the things I
Yes.
remember Mr.
Yes.
Roman,
Yeah, we
I
did.
think I heard Mr. Roman say this at the videotape, was that when the bond, and I, again, don't quote me the numbers, but I think I heard him say that when the bond is actually issued, that we start incurring $30,000 worth of interest expense off of that. And one of his concern was to make sure that the bond did not get issued until we were ready to put a shovel into the ground, because that would save the taxpayers, because paying it back almost $30,000 a month. And that kind of makes sense, because if the money had all come flush in July, we would be paying $30,000 a month in interest for, almost a year and a half.
It has to do with how the 30,000 comes about because of the bonds not being issued in July. So we're behind the beating ball, and it's all off. The process is up. We're trying to get it back on track. Joe is there. It's,
So you're getting penalized, is that what you're saying?
No, because you don't have the money yet, so you
Well-
can't get
No,
penalized.
what she was saying is because
no,
they didn't get
it's
the
not
bond
as
issue.
clean as it could have been. If we had our money, if we had the money for the library project in July, we could have paid for that land right then, and we wouldn't be short on funds.
Okay, but where's the interest that we're talking about?
It's not there. I mean,
It's not there, it's what? I don't get it. What do you mean it's not there?
So.
I'm not trying to be facetious, but I don't
So, hold on
understand
a
why.
second. Let me
Okay,
take it from a different point of view.
okay.
I totally agree with Mr. Roman from the perspective of issue the bonds when you need the money,
Mhm.
okay? Totally agree. If you look at it though, he will, I think, to quote you, quoting him, until you put the shovel in the ground, you don't need the money. According to our document, we've already spent $800,000. So if we didn't have a fund balance, how could we wait until a shovel is in the ground to sell the bonds, to get the money to get to a shovel in the ground? I mean, I understand, do you understand what I'm saying?
I
Lisa?
understand what you mean.
So,
You
I
just jumped the gun.
mean, you can't wait until you put a shovel in the ground to sell the bonds, because you'd never get to a shovel in the ground.
Right, I mean, there's definitely expenses. You have to have.
There's expenses incurred.
Architect,
Now-
construction,
now-
all that sort of stuff, for
Now,
sure.
could the bonds be sold in, $2 million increments and phase it in? Or 2 million and then 6 million? I'm not the bond sales guy. I mean, to cash flow your way into it would be a way to do it. My belief is, based on what the cost is to sell these bonds, that it wouldn't work. Because the cost to sell the bonds is just almost $200,000. And if you wanted to play games with how to release it and whatnot. But, so my only point is, you can't wait till a shovel in the ground if you've got no money to spend in the first place. So somewhere along the line, either the township, which de facto they are doing, is financing us to get to shovel in the ground. So the township's doing a great thing by saving the taxpayers money. It's just the way in which we got here is raising animosity or curiosity or whatever the right word is between people because we're not paying. Well, I mean, I can turn it to where they're just financing us to save the taxpayer money. But it's coming through our account, which isn't the cleanest way of doing things. I mean, the other way could have been, we turn over the bills, just as we will in the future, and the township could have held those bills and paid out of their own account and refunded us. I mean, there's all different kinds of ways it could have been done,
Right, you could have financed the land.
which we are.
Which we are with the bonds.
Well, right now, we're financing it out
Right.
of our fund bill.
Right, I'm just saying originally.
Okay, we should
So-
get going.
Is that enough?
So I have one quick comment. It's quick. It's a positive, kind positive. I just want to share with everybody here in hopes that they would encourage their friend network in White Lake to take the survey. As of yesterday at the steering committee, there was only 19 participants that have taken the survey thus far. So if everyone can just kind of get the word out to their networks, that would be great, in hopes of more participation.
It is a lengthy survey though,
Mm-hmm.
and you've gotta, I don't want to suggest go through the whole thing first
Yeah,
before
read
you
it.
start answering things, because then
Yes.
you'll find out, oops, I should have answered them someplace else. So
That's a good tip.
read through it, the whole thing, and get to it. So.
Was that distributed out, the second survey's link? 'Cause the first one.
It's on our website, it's on, it's the township.
It's on both
had a
websites.
Bad link, I don't know if it fixed it.
It works. The township has a link, it works. I've done it.
Okay.
I'm on
So
it.
we're
One of the 19.
need approval of these minutes.
I'll make a motion to do that.
So Jen's approving.
I'll second.
It's a race. Karen second. Dave, Joe, you guys
Aye.
approve? Everybody, yes?
Second.
All right. Okay, so now we're right back to the Library Building Committee report. Okay, so a couple things of noteworthiness. There's a lot, but a couple things. The first thing, let's go back to the parcel of land for which the survey is about. We turned in our site plan to the township in August, to the planning commission, September. So they've had it. The township utilizes outside consulting firms to look at mechanical and civil. So they've got, because they don't house all the resources, they send it out. They also send one to the county. The county never responded. They didn't respond to the second set of drawings. So as we're preparing to go to the November 2nd Planning Commission, the county responded. The county responded on two key points. The first one is the right-of-way on Elizabeth Lake Road. Elizabeth Lake Road is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's where the township wants to develop downtown. It's where they just spent the $45,000 for the survey, getting all this input, or trying to get input on how to build a downtown. The county came back with a comment that we're changing the right-of-way on the road. Our side, and I'll just speak our side has 33 feet. They now want 60 feet so they can put basically a 5-lane highway through there.
What?
It'll fit 5. It'll fit 5. So,
Times two.
well, no, we're only talking about our side. The other side's already given up land. So let's just talk about us, because it's just what matters to us. And actually the township, because I may have looked at the drawings wrong, I'll be the first to admit, but at 27 feet times the length that I think the township has, they lose like an acre of property, buildable property, out of the, I don't know, I get some information messed up, but they had like 11 buildable acres, 12, I don't know. So they lose like 10% of the buildable space. We lose on our property, and I thought we were gonna have the drawings, but we don't. So for us, we have to discuss, and here's the two things going on as far as that. So, if you remember the drawing, we have parking along Elizabeth Lake Road, so we would lose that first row of parking. I think it's 27 spaces. Okay? So if we protect for this new information, for which it should be noted there's been no notification by the county, there's no documentation. I went back to our survey. When we bought the property, it's 33 feet. So I'm not sure how all of this actually gets communicated, other than, oh, by the way, we want. I mean, is that how it works?
No, the Road Commission for Oakland County has a master plan for all the roads within the county, and in that master plan, it identifies which right-of-ways in the county are going to remain 66 feet wide and which ones are forecast in the master plan to be 120 foot wide. So that's been in place since the 80s, early 90s, something like that. So the local ordinances then typically take their setback requirements, not from an existing right-of-way, but from a proposed future right-of-way line. And every development in Oakland County has to abide by those requirements.
Okay, so that's a master plan versus an actual,
That is correct.
okay, so, thank you. So we have this dilemma, this, yeah.
Does, wouldn't the title search have?
It's no, because you just said it's on a master plan, it's not on the deed, it's not on the property, you've got to, I mean, it's no different than us reading the zoning ordinance and then saying, oh, wait a minute, there's also a water ordinance. I mean, you gotta look at the deed and you gotta look at the master plan to figure out what you are doing. Learn something every day. So that leaves the front row of parking. The second issue, when C280 first went to the road commission, they said push the entrance as far away from M59 as possible, avoid the elevation drop in the curve of the road. So we, on our site plan, you all know, we pushed it all the way down to the edge of the parcel that the township owns. So we pushed it all the way down to there. During this, oh, by the way, late meeting, not only do we want the 27 feet, but you also have to be 360 feet from the rehab corner. Sorry if that's not the technical term, but that's from that corner coming towards us. Which puts us right back to about the first drawing where the driveway came right in front of the building. So we have to relocate the driveway from the corner and put it in the middle. And oddly enough, it looks like by relocating the driveway back to where it was, we'll pick up a few spots where the driveway was on the end, and that leaves us net short some parking spots. So the one proposal, or one direction given to C2AE is with approval, verbal approval from Planning Commission, is if you remember where the retention pond is on the employee entrance, they C2 will actually draw on our drawing the net difference of parking spots to get us to the code, to the ordinance, hash it off, color it, whatever, and propose future if required. So what I'm saying is we will actually build and put our parking lot on the right of way because it's a master plan and who knows how long until they really ever decide to put that at that width. But then we could protect ourselves by moving the retention pond back, put it down the hill a little bit, and then leave that flat open area for current use of what we want to do. So that's an option that C2 is looking at.
Does this change our submission date?
It totally screws up the whole planning process. Totally. Because, and in fairness, and I will try, I mean, Sean didn't know this. I mean, he got it back. He's like, what? And I sent this to you twice. You said nothing. And then at the 11th hour, you come with a bombshell that says, oh, by the way, so move the driveway to what you didn't want to put it in a less safe position because the calculation is 100 feet for every mile, no, 10 feet for every mile per hour or whatever. So 35 miles an hour equals 350 feet, 360. So that's how they get to where they want it to be. The second option isn't as good from one perspective, but better from a long term, is we actually say, okay, the 27 feet that we have to leave, we turn that into the retention pond. But then we have to slope water back towards it. So if you look at it from the perspective of the parking lot from Elizabeth Lake Road is going to go up,
and then you're gonna go down into the building, and the natural grade of the ground is already down. So they're gonna look at it, but it doesn't look really, really good from that perspective. So those are the two things that they're currently investigating. But to Jen's question, I'll come back to you. To Jen's question, that means the November 2nd Planning Commission meeting will still stand for this zoning issue, but it will not stand for a site plan approval, because I don't think C2 is gonna have a time. Yes, ma'am?
So is that gonna wipe out your 7% contingency fee because of these
No.
potential, no?
No.
Including the retention?
No, the retention pond was already there.
Yeah, I know, but
So the
it's gotta
retention-
be readjusted, and you've got, you know, slope of the land and swales and all that, you know, you may have to put more monies into trying to make that efficient as a retention pond. And runoff,
They'll look at it.
because it
I'm
does
sure, I
have
mean,
that.
every time you talk to them, yes, it's gonna
Yeah,
cost more.
yeah,
I mean,
things are gonna cost more, so that's why I'm saying, and my concern is with your
No,
budget.
so
is
think
the
about, what is
contingency fee.
7% of 8.6 million?
Well, that's gonna be what, $560,000?
Right, so
Yeah.
from that perspective, it's not gonna cost us $560,000
That's
to move
one
a
thing.
pond
That's
40
one
feet.
thing.
I mean,
That's one thing, but as you go along, pardon the expression, you know, stuff happens, well, I'll
Yeah,
use that,
that's
stuff
okay.
happens, and, you know, it's a little bit here and a little bit there,
And-
and hopefully, you know, to me, 7% seems a little bit on the slim side,
okay.
you know,
It's-
it does.
So,
You know,
so that's
to
where we're at
execute
on
this.
the site plan, so that's one issue. And then that does change the planning commission dates, is the second issue. And on the positive side, we looked at the sewer connection charge in the water. That's that $113,000 bill to connect to the sewer. That was based on, see, you guys get educated to where you never wanted to be. 3 different kinds of toilets. You got your tank toilet that you have in your house, and then your flush valve toilet, and then there's actually a middle of the road toilet, which is like, it's a tank toilet power assist, which will, which then reduces plumbing costs, it reduces the sewer connection costs, because it has less residential equivalent units. So from those perspectives, we're actually, I mean, I hope you're listening, we're bringing money back as we look at the design of what we can do. So, so they're currently costing out the calculation, and then it's a cost benefit that we'll decide if that's the right place to save money, so.
Is that middle of the road toilet called a low flush toilet too? Or is that?
No, it's a power flush.
Oh, okay.
A low flush toilet is one that uses less water. And so in the interest of, no, I won't even go. So,
Too much information.
yeah, really, the next comment would be, so we're looking at that. So those are out there. Those are the 2 biggest things, but they are still working on actual construction drawings. So we should have received, or we will receive shortly, with the changes that the building committee's accepted, overhang structure outside, all of that stuff, and a reduction of square footage. So we looked at the public use space and protected for that. And then we looked at the administrative area, and we're looking to take space out of that, because then there's the cost per square foot savings. So we'll come down 1,500 square feet or something like that in that neighborhood. So in order to balance, you know, the wants and needs and all that. But the public space we're good for. So that's good news. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Your November 2nd meeting, is that the zoning meeting you said, and what time does that take place?
7.
7 at Lakeland Cafeteria.
Going by the football
Across from
field.
the auditorium.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's across the hall from the auditorium.
Yeah, but if you go in by the tennis courts, you're
it's
right,
right there.
you're looking at out at the tennis courts
Yeah.
from the cafeteria.
Closer to park, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's right inside the door.
Mhm.
That's the-
Thank you.
So our next actions on the library building committee is we gotta, understand the setback, see what the new layout site will look like, and some of the cost trade-offs as far as the various things that they've been looking at. Cool. That's great.
74? Oh, you're right, sorry.
Excuse me.
I forgot that we moved it ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Any other questions on the building?
When is the next, building committee meeting?
November 2nd.
Oh,
No, you asked when's the next building committee meeting, and I answered November 2nd, and that is correct. At 10 in the morning, I believe.
Not, it's a committee meeting.
Right.
There's not forum.
No, this is just
Talk to the architect.
it's between the architects and the construction manager. So. Okay. That it? Anything else, ladies? Answer all your questions?
So far. Just being honest.
That's good. So from a president's report, other than having too much fun reading ordinances, I think that's enough for me.
How fast?
Pass on Vice Secretary?
none.
None. Joe, Treasurer?
Treasurer, I looked over the payments for this month, reviewed those, they all looked appropriate. There's nothing out of the ordinary except for a payment to C2AE and the new library building. That was it. I don't know if anybody else has any questions, anything on the payment? If nobody does, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the payments, but I'm going to suggest we hold the payment to the township again and also delay the payment to C2AE at this point.
So we're approving all of them, but holding back the two, or do you want to approve without approving the township?
Approve without approving the township.
So all bills approved without the township, and then you're going to hold the check for C2.
Hold the check for C2AE.
That means he's not going to nail it to the check.
And mail it.
Hold it till revenue comes in.
You're aware of it.
So a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. Jen, Karen, approve?
Yes. Yep.
And by withholding that payment, I did not update cash flow. I did look at it. We should have enough cash to carry us through till December, till we start getting the revenue monies for next year. However, I would like to make a motion. We do have $100,000 in a CD. And if we do need that, I would like to make a motion to approve the transfer of that CD into our checking account. If we need it,
This is an if and when.
if and when, right. And we can, if we don't do it by next meeting, we'll revisit this. I'll bring it up again. But for now, just to be safe.
We can do that with the terms of that CD. We can,
We'll have to pay some penalty, I looked into doing it back in June or July, and at that point, we would have had to pay about a $400 penalty. Or not
Just
pay.
I was gonna say, clarify your terminology.
Yeah, not pay, withhold, they would withhold $400 in interest. So in that CD, it was $100,000 we put in. The current balance is, you know, 101,500. So,
And they keep 400.
yeah, and back in June, it would have been 400. If we do it now, it comes due in February. So if we had to pull the money out within the next month, it would be less than $400 penalty.
Lost interest.
Lost interest.
The next meeting's on the 15th, it's early, Joe.
Pardon?
The next meeting's on the 15th of November because of
Right,
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, right.
Do you want to wait till then, or you want to?
Well, I'm not gonna, I do wanna make the motion now, and it just, in case something happens, just, I can go in and pull that money out of there. And then we'll revisit it on the 15th at our next meeting.
I just recommend you pull it out.
I'm not sure we're going to need it.
I'll go with the treasurer.
Okay.
I need a second.
So can I change that, or to clarify your motion, say to authorize you to transfer
Transfer
the value of the CD?
value of the CD to the checking account
If needed for cash flow.
if needed for cash flow, yes.
That's your
Which I
motion.
think you could do, if you wanted to, but just, it's good that we have a motion.
Right.
You seconding that, Rich? Did you just-
I will second it.
Awesome. Dave, Connor, and John, approved? All approved? Good. Anything else on the treasurer's report?
No, it just, the only thing you had mentioned is that you've been meeting with the township on issuing the bonds. We have a meeting coming up next week.
And the only thing on that is, are we validating the attorney fees? I mean, have we got a second quote or conversation or anything?
Yes. Well, did you see the,
No.
you didn't see-
I saw the first one, it had $40,000.
I know you asked Mike Roman, and he sent out an email to Commerce Township, and it's not apples to apples what they did. So we will do that, though. We haven't got the
Right.
engagement letter, we need an engagement letter, which we don't, they haven't given us yet. So
So no
It's
engagement
in
letter by the
process.
financial planner and no engagement letter?
the township has it, we do not.
Well,
I asked for it, so.
Okay, so you just distributed, this is the proposed schedule of events. This is the original.
This
one, right? Okay.
is just a draft.
What topic are we on? Where are we using
This is
that?
just, where are we? The treasurer's report right now.
Treasury, it's
Okay.
treasury.
Thank you.
This is not, this is just what we got last week from the bond attorney.
At the initial meeting we had with the township on issuing the
Or
bonds,
2 weeks ago.
this was the proposed schedule of events and the estimated costs. And they included, they itemized the cost of issuance. And you can see they want $40,000 for the bond council and so on. Rating agency fees, bond discounts, and so on.
Okay. But this cost estimate was put together by the financial advisor.
Yes,
So-
and I don't know if he even consulted the attorney.
Right, so that was an open question. You said Mike's asked.
Mike's asked, and we'll have to do some more.
Okay, good.
I'd like to see the engagement letter to see what he's supposed to be doing. If it's, you know, to be able to,
Well,
to be able to ask the question.
maybe we should ask Clark Hill what it would cost too.
Oh, you will. The engagement letter.
Trust but verify.
Huh?
Trust but verify. Yes. Okay. Anything else, Joe?
No, that's it. That's all I
That's it?
had.
Director's report? You guys ready over there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Director's report?
Sure. I don't know if you've all got a chance to read it or not. Kind of, it's a very detailed listing, but most people we already talked about. The one thing that we haven't talked about is, I went to the township budget meeting, and we talked about the budget. There was also trustees' comments, and Mike Roman made a comment basically affirming the fact that the township is not, well, I'll read it to you. The library is a separate entity and has a separate board. The board cannot force the library into doing anything it does not want to do. We cannot force them to do a combined facility if they choose not to. Holding up the bonds would serve no purpose that is positive. It would be his hope that the library would agree to a combined facility, but at this point, it appears that the board does not want to go that route. That is their decision, and he will support it. That then at the bond meeting, when we were talking to the attorney, with the attorneys, our attorney was there as well, and Mr. McCarthy, our construction manager. The question was asked, was there a separate building? And both Mike and Rick, Terry didn't say anything, agreed, yes, it's a separate building. And it will be on our property, the north lot is what Rick called it. But, just as we had proposed to the public, and so we're past that, and hopefully won't be revisited because it's done. Any questions about that? Thought it was important to point it out, especially after spinal columns today, and I know that there's still a feeling that people would like that, but it's just not, for a lot of reasons, it's not going to.
David?
Hold on a second, please. Would you like to entertain a question during your report?
What are all the reasons?
You know, if you'd like to come and talk to me, I will do that, because we talked about it in different meetings before this, so, you can call me. It's complicated, and we're very late, and we've got to,
What's your number? You're Denise?
yes,
What's your number?
248-698-4942,
What's a good time to call?
extension 5.
Oh, extension 5.
A good time to call. It's been really, we don't even, not, we don't even need to. Most likely after 10:30.
Okay. Thank you.
Friends book sale,
I'll just go back to their CIDI development study. It's really disappointing, the amount of public input. So anybody that can reiterate what Liz has already said in case you skipped over that on your meeting. Answer the survey, come to the meeting, got involved. When they're spending that kind of money, or it says that nobody really cares, or nobody wants it, so I'm not sure which, but, anything we can do to help promote people to pay attention would be good.
I don't think the fact that it's an hour to do it's helping.
Yeah, it's too long and tedious for people.
Yeah, I mean,
That's the
if you
problem.
want people's input, don't make it so difficult. I know.
That was discussed at the steering committee of what
Yeah.
else we could do, but it is what it is. There's
But
no vision.
also
They're getting quality feedback. It is, you
Yeah.
know, it is complicated, so. And the consultants did say that they liked what they got back
Yeah.
from the people that,
Took the
either
time.
the boards, I think, everybody from the boards
Mhm.
would have filled it out and done it.
So, but also the actual participation at the Mid-Lakeland was,
Right. Well, there wasn't participation, so that's.
okay, the
The attendance was low, there was about 74.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, it's all right, you can move on.
Um,
Okay. Friends book sale, we made $850 and decided to have a bag sale to move out all the inventory, which is, for a bag sale to make $850 is pretty good, so, it's good. The Friends do need some help, with putting the books away. David, you did that once, right?
Yeah, I was unable to last time. I got a text from Larry.
When's December
11, 10, 11.
Number 10th is a Saturday.
9th, 10th, if it's a Saturday. So, it could be anybody really, it's just an hour, but it's so, so important, because many of our friends are older and/or don't have good mobility on the shoulders, and they work hard, but,
Yes.
and Joe's been one of the ones that,
If you
he wasn't here.
know of anyone that wants to help print it out on the book sale, please send them over.
Personnel, we have a couple new employees, one replaced Ashley Jazwiak, who left us for a full-time job in the circulation area. And we hired Amy Chaperon. She has been to training already, so that's good, at PLN, which they hold every 2 months, I believe, so it was good timing. And then we've also hired 2 substitute librarians because the other 2 that we had got better jobs than a substitute. So it's kind of what we do. We have to, every year, some we have kept some of our subs. So it's one way to try them out ahead of time when a job comes up. But they're both Masters of Library Information Science students at Wayne State. One of them works as an intern at Canton Library, very, very busy library, and also has experience at Novi, another busy library. So that's good. And the other one is also an intern at the Carl Maida Library at St. Mary's Prep. So good hires, I think. Staff and Service Day, November 8th. Got a nice schedule planned. Then we should go to Highland House for lunch. On the Friends, hopefully. We usually do, so. We're also going to have our holiday party that day. A free holiday party. One way to get everybody here. We do still have a party, a week-long party at Holiday in the building. Okay, library building, we had the sprinkler system winterized and had 2 phone lines had problems. I don't know if it's squirrels or what, but it was our elevator line and one of our primary lines. And then Glenn, I don't know if you read this part, but
Yeah, it did.
We didn't get rid of this beautiful out of town.
yes, I guess Denise just takes it and Mary does too, so. They volunteered to freshen up our paint job.
I thought they were just gonna repaint it the same color.
No, they wanted dark blue like we had upstairs, but
So
Too dark.
disappointing.
I know, we just love that green.
It's just gonna be the one I said, well.
It's gonna be-
Not gonna do nothing.
No, we're doing, see how bad this is.
Yeah, but the rest is gonna stay white. That's only that.
I'm not sure.
It'll look better.
It'll look better.
Yeah, well, for
Then they're
dark
gonna
blue
hang
walls
them.
will look smaller, so. just-
No, we're not doing dark blue.
Okay.
We're not doing dark blue,
Okay.
because that's why, they make it look smaller, you're right, absolutely.
Okay.
So, and then they'll hang painting, our grand art as well.
Okay.
So, I did go, when I was at MLA, there was a reception on the second day at East Lansing Library, which is a client of C2. And Amelia, our interior designer, walking around and showing me a lot of really cool things that she did and some similar things that she'd like to use for us. So that was a good thing to do.
Cool. Anything else? Like that. Your statistics are in your package if you'd like to take a look at them at your leisure. Moving on to new business. Request for accommodation. So we've had a request that has been out there. Contrary to some people's knowledge, we are not paying for this videotape. This is somebody sending in their own people to do this, meaning the township. I don't know if they send their video crew to other organizations that aren't a part of their, under their directive, but it seems kind of interesting they chose us. But nevertheless, always like to have Merge Live. I get $5 every time I say Merge Live, so.
There you Glenn.
So from that perspective, the request is out there. The proposal that's been put forth, obviously for 8 years, nobody attended from the public. It was always quiet. Not that we don't like the public, but I think they're here because of a specific issue at this time, more than just the mundane operations of the library. So the proposal, the first proposal, or the proposal that's come forth to me was that we would establish a policy or a practice, actually a practice and a policy, that we would have a speakerphone line activated 5 minutes before the meeting, 10 minutes before the meeting. That phone line would then remain open, provided somebody calls in. If after 15 minutes after the meeting started and it's just sitting there beeping at us, then we would close it because it would appear as though nobody's going to join. That way, anybody that can't come to the meeting at the assigned time, they can dial in. And if you're in Florida in the middle of the winter, and if you want to dial in, then you wouldn't feel left out. So, in that way, anybody that's, like I said, not able to get here at the meeting time could then participate. Also, it would be able for them, based on a phone, unlike a current Merge Live, they can actually participate. So if they have public comments, then we're here, we can listen to their input, and hear what they have to say.
Maybe we should all just go to Florida for the meeting.
No, as a trustee, you cannot phone it in. We require your presence. So to be a quorum, you've got to be here. So you can, if there's enough people to make a quorum and you dial in, then that's okay.
But you're not present and you don't.
And you don't vote. Yeah. So you can listen, but it doesn't help. I wouldn't tease.
I mean, we should all go to Florida.
We'll come back to that.
So Glenn, would that be set up like a conference, so like the number would be published on the website, and then like you do those conference calls, you dial a number and then push conference number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then people just, so like 3 and 4 people could be on that same line? Is that what you're envisioning?
Yes.
In the general picture, yes. So the numbers should be published on the agenda, so people would know what to call in, so it would be a published number, and, then they'll join in.
It's a single request for accommodation, but if it can support others without disabilities or with disabilities, either way, I would think it would be a value.
Any pros, cons, yeses, no's? Actually,
Yes, Ken.
no.
Is there a reason why you don't want it videotaped?
Is there, yes.
And?
I can't say that. No, you would think less of me. I know him, so from that perspective, I just don't want to see Mike or Ken.
We go way back.
By doing a phone dial-in, we feel that the public could be better served because, number one, we don't put up arts and charts, so there's nothing to see on a video other than what shirt we wore. And in this particular case, the public could then actually participate in the meeting rather than being a bystander. And we need people to participate in the government as a process rather than just sit back and watch. Yes, Ken?
I was going to say or offer up that we can do these live and we can have that same level of participation either through the conference call that you just described or we can do it through a live chat.
And you're doing it free?
Well, no, I mean, it was a service, but my point was it is also kept for people to watch later. So that's an option.
Yeah, that's a good idea. People like to see.
I just want to throw it out there.
You know, as people speak.
So that's the proposal we have on the table. There's a conference call. We could try that, see how it goes. To a certain extent, I have not a crystal ball. I got a feeling once a new library is well underway under its process, we will not get to see as many people in the public as what we do. I mean, I'm not sure. We used to have Kate, but that went away because of the employees. So from that perspective, but so that.
In terms of like a conference call service, in my personal experience, I pay for a web meeting service that supports up to 25 people in a meeting, and it's like $50 a month. But that's for I can run as many meetings as I want for that $50. So I'm sure that the cost of doing one meeting a month would be much less than $50 a month.
I think we can be cost effective at least for the next 7 months.
So I don't think it should cost us an arm and a leg to do a conference. We may have some equipment. We may need the equipment.
Never volunteered enough.
But we might need some, a conference phone that would be more than what we need, more than a desk phone.
We'll try.
To be able to do so.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking, yeah, or we have two phones that we dial in, and you can put one phone on one side, one phone.
We do conference calls with the organization I'm with, and everybody calls in on their cell phones, and the person who is leading it talks on her phone, so it's like everybody has their own phone.
We have
Right.
that.
Different than,
But it would be different if we're here and I'm talking and there's public talking there, you want to be able to pick that up, and that's, you know, not a cell phone, that's going to take some planning of, yeah.
So I've
They have a
actually
microphone
been
for the,
conferenced into a meeting in this room and you can hear okay.
public comments is probably a microphone,
Yeah.
like they do at the township, because you can't hear people that don't.
Yeah, so there'd be some setup stuff, but maybe some of that equipment could be useful in the next generation of library buildings.
and as long as the township send you can.
Yeah, the township keeps sending Merge Live, so, I mean, you get your video from the township. I still don't understand it, but, I mean, if the township's got the budget to send a camera crew around,
That's great.
that's great. I don't know if we need a motion process. If it's not
Well, I think we,
as a practice, we should document the fact that we will do this going forward for the foreseeable future.
A temporary policy, temporary
Temporary,
practice,
Like
temporary practice.
4 months or 6 months and see how it.
and you see how it works.
Okay.
If it needed-
Okay, so for the November meeting and the 5 subsequent meetings afterwards, we will do a open line conference with the number to be open 10 minutes before the meeting. The number will close 15 minutes after the start of the meeting.
If there's no participation.
If
If
there's
there's no
nobody.
participation. Agreed?
Yep.
Somebody gonna make that motion?
I'll make a motion that
I'll
we
make
do that. That we establish for the next 6 months, or next 6 meetings. That we would do that.
Kind of is it.
And then there should be each meeting or after, in the December meeting, we should make sure if there's any feedback via the directors, then we can adjust it next time. Okay. So Dave made it,
That's fine.
Jen second.
Sure.
hang on,
I'll get you comments.
Thank you.
Okay.
We done those business?
He's still typing, and we weren't on old business, we were in new business, so.
I know, but have we discussed old business?
I think so. Unless there's any other discussion.
That was just this, nice study.
We did that.
I'm supposed to be working on it, so. And we're still on.
Somebody's waiting.
You got it?
Patrick then needs to host a conference call. 10 minutes before closing, 15 minutes after start with participation with evaluation. Evaluation each month. Toward a longer-term plan. Is that what the motion was?
Yeah, sure. I don't know, it was a longer term plan.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we put longer term, I was just, figure, we'll just do it the next 6 months, see how it works. Ken, how long are you coming?
I think for the next, is it 2 meetings till the end of the year?
It'd be nice if you
Make that motion?
let us
Sure,
know,
yes.
since now it's
Jen,
no
second.
communication, let us know you're coming. So if you're coming November and December then?
Yes, that's what I have in the calendar.
Okay.
So then we don't have to do it.
So then, based on that information, do we really need to start in
Yeah, we
November?
do, we need to.
I think we should be on our own. We shouldn't rely on other people coming into our meetings and
Well, but it may take more than, what is it, 3 weeks until our next meeting? We'll put it together.
No, we'll figure it out.
Next meeting was, you said the 15th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
All done?
Do we have
Everybody's yes.
Yes.
Made by Dave, second by John, everybody yes. So, old business status of the Civic Center Development Study, I think we filled that. Any other questions? I will say, though, that in the steering committee, when this whole process started, the consultant said there would be 3 alternatives, and you picked and choose what you liked out of each, and they would come back to one. It was interesting in the steering committee when an hour and 45 minutes into it, everybody finally figured out that they were taking what they liked out of these and came back to one. So the difference being, for the final plan that's to be presented, Inform Studios was given the direction of, number 1, stay on, the township building should stay on the township property, with a alternative being like a plan B, and then they could move, say, police and fire off their property and put them to a better place than on their property, and to put the library on its property. So those 2 things are Inform is working with, library on its property, township buildings on their property as the primary path, and then fill in with the other, some really good ideas that they have, to come up with a long-term plan. So I hope it works out well. Look forward to seeing it for the November 8th meeting at Lakeland.
When does the survey close?
The survey, well, the survey will close on the 7th or 8th, but, I mean, if you want any value in it, it diminishes every day as they get closer to what they want to do. So, okay. Any other questions, issues? And I'll even go back to you ladies. Anything else? Because we're about ready to say that we're going to move into a executive session. So we close, make a motion to close the meeting? No, to move into. So
I'll make a motion.
I heard that from Joe, seconded by Dave.
We need a,
Time 9 o'clock.
a voice.
What?
We need a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I said yeah.